Hi everyone, I'm Sajanya Gamadyala, the Communications Manager for Capricorn Power. Thanks to everyone who took time out of their busy schedules today. I know everyone has a ton of competing things, and so we really appreciate it. With us today, we have Capricorn CEO Mike Hodgkinson, the National Director of Advanced Manufacturing Growth Center, Michael Sharpe, and Capricorn Director and former Treasurer of Victoria, Rob Jolly. Thanks again, Michael and Rob, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. So the topic of this webinar is about investing in Australia's manufacturing future, specifically about clean tech disruption in energy markets. The format of today is I'll be asking the panelists a few prepared questions on that topic. And as many of you know, we're currently running our expression of interest campaign on the virtual platform. We'll be answering any questions you might have about that, about the raise and whatnot after the panel discussion. And just to cover a bit of housekeeping, feel free to write questions in the chat. And don't worry if we do have plenty of questions and we don't have time to get to all of them, we will answer them and then share our answers with you tomorrow. We're also recording this session in case you want to rewatch it and share it with your networks. So, without further ado, I might as well kick off and start with the first question. And that's to Rob. So Rob, just last week, it was reported by Morningstar that sustainable investment funds surpassed $1 trillion for the first time on record, driven by government support for a green recovery post-COVID. How are institutional investors changing the investment landscape by including ESG, environmental, social, governance criteria in their decision-making?
Okay, maybe if I just talk from my personal experience as Chair of Utilities Trust of Australia. I was appointed at the end of 2010, and the major investors in Utilities Trust of Australia, known as UTA, were industry super funds. So they were already keenly focused on environmental issues. And when I joined the board as Deputy Chair and then became Chair, they already had subscriptions to PRI, which is Principles of Responsible Investment. So that was the early stage of interest in environmental issues. During the period in which I was there, moved from just a subscriber to being an active participant in ESG. And the major issue, and now is right at the forefront, is carbon emissions, and basically making sure that the environment side of reducing greenhouse gas emissions was extremely important. More recently, there's been a focus on the S of ESG, and particularly trying to reduce the extent of modern slavery and reduce the business risk associated with that. But just moving back to carbon emissions, obviously, which is the main issue of topic tonight. UTA established an ESG committee about 5 years ago. The focus at that time was making sure that we were not going to invest in any coal-fired generator. We do have investments in one fossil fuel operation, and that's Phoenix Natural Gas, which is the gas distributor in Belfast in Ireland. But that's the only fossil fuel we have investments in. So basically, we've moved to make sure that we understand the carbon impact of every asset we have and taking decisions now to reduce that carbon impact, including every decision on investment now, whether we continue or disband one, integrates ESG issues into the decision-making process.
Great. And that leads me to my next question. This is to Michael Sharpe. And again, thanks, Michael, for joining us from the car. To those of you who don't know, Michael travels a lot for work, and so we always catch him different plane, train, and automobile.
Very true.
So my question for you is, obviously investors are helping to move the needle to kickstart projects that are trying to solve the issue of climate change. But over 70% of greenhouse gas emissions in Australia come from the energy sector. What role does the government play in helping companies and consumers transition to a low carbon future? And what does a green recovery in advanced manufacturing look like?
Well, there's no doubt that manufacturing in general is going to play a key role in our economic recovery. It's great to be here today. I'm in the town of Wagga Wagga in regional New South Wales and talking to some great companies here today. And the manufacturing membership at AMGC has gone through the roof, and that shows me that companies are out there reaching out, wanting to know that they're doing all that they can and doing all the right things to look for the future of their business right now. And so you've seen the federal government announce just last week the Recycling Modernisation Fund, which will offer grants to business to look at all the things they can do to build their business and look for new opportunities. Energy is going to play a key role, right? You can manufacture all you like, but energy is a key input. And so we need to look at all that we can do to boost energy supplies, lower the cost of energy, make energy more reliable. And so anything that can lead to that boost in the manufacturing side will be a boost to our nation. And these are the sort of things that we will all need to look at. Who would have thought 5 months ago that 2020 would work out the way it has? And yet we're seeing some great innovation out there. We were able to bring 30 companies together for the ventilator project. So we say that manufacturing is our nation's capability. What are we capable of making, and what are we capable of exporting to the world? Because we'd much rather see a potential audience of 7 billion customers for our great technologies, whether it's in food production or into the new space sector. And so government needs to look at all they can do to harness this enthusiasm to make things and be able to get that out to the world markets. And we're seeing that on a daily basis, and we've been co-funding projects with federal government funding to put our AMGC research into action. And so those case studies can be found on the AMGC website. And we also launched the Manufacturing Academy. So we've got manufacturers from companies big and small sharing their story about being an advanced manufacturer today and all that will be needed to boost their company for tomorrow. So it really is a manufacturing moment.
That's great to hear. So that leads me to my next question from Mike Hodgkinson. How do you think Capricorn fits into this green recovery? How big is the potential market for Capricorn Power's heat engine in Australia? And who are Capricorn's ideal customers?
Great. Thanks, Jania. Well, I guess the first thing to say is waste heat is one of the largest sources of energy on the planet. And today, about 75% of the world's power is generated by heat engines. So the total potential market size for our heat engine is of course enormous. In the local market, according to Geoscience Australia, Bioenergy has the potential for up to 73 terawatt hours, which is about a third of Australia's current electricity consumption. So a third's not a bad total market here, potential. Our challenge is to focus on the very best market for the stage of development that we're at right now. And we've chosen small-scale waste to energy because of the enormous synergy that it has with our heat engine, which gives us a compelling competitive advantage in that market. And because obviously there's enormous demand from customers for this type of solution, thanks to high gas and electricity costs and high waste disposal costs. And as Rob has mentioned, driven by corporate sustainability goals as well. So our projects are green because we're planning to take the biomass waste that otherwise typically ends up in landfill, turn it into biochar and generate on-site electricity. The biochar is a carbon store, so that the projects are carbon negative. And it's also circular economy because the biochar can be used as an agricultural productivity enhancer. And of course, our electricity displaces coal, which pollutes and uses lots of water. So how do we fit into the green recovery? Well, we're a fast-growing Australian company. We hope to double our size each year for many years. We're manufacturing in Geelong. and that means that we'll have a much greater economic multiplier effect in Australia than almost any other type of investment, economically, socially, and environmentally.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, next question's back to Michael Sharpe. So at Capricorn Power, we have the potential to accelerate the adoption of decentralized renewable energy solutions through our heat engine, which can be used for small-scale industrial applications. What trends are you seeing in solar energy, or more broadly, renewable energy innovation in Australia? Has there been onshoring of solar manufacturing capability?
There is, and there will be more. I mean, there is certainly a lot of discussion around energy in general. And I was recently in central Queensland and talking to our members up there who are reporting to me that their energy costs have tripled. And so that's a real handbrake on manufacturing. So any opportunity to lower those energy costs and provide more reliable energy will be a boost to those local manufacturers just in that region. So then think about multiplying that across Australia, and then think about multiplying that across the rest of the world, because this really is a global manufacturing moment. We've seen how much that's changed, and suddenly the whole world is talking about what can we make. And so it's an exciting time on that level. But to have these new technologies around hydrogen, around solar power, and there's even talk of nuclear energy, isn't there? So people are talking about energy. It's a real focus. And as a country, we need to adopt the right technologies now to boost our manufacturing sector to create those jobs. We need those job multipliers. And that's what we're doing at AMGC every day, is getting out and talking with our members, connecting with our great researchers to boost these capabilities for Australia's future.
That's terrific. So the next question is for Rob. Rob, I think I'm very keen to know, what attracted you to Capricorn Power, and what role does Capricorn Power play in the transition to a cleaner future? Do you see Capricorn's heat engine innovation as potentially disruptive in the energy sector?
First of all, in relation to the first part of your question, I've had a long-term interest in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, either through energy efficiency or renewable energy. And back in the late 1990s, I did some initial work with Busy Recycling when Dick Pratt was alive, and they were looking into waste to energy plants at that stage. I've also in the past been an advisor to waste to energy plants at landfill sites. And as part of that work, I discovered that a lot of small landfill sites could not actually produce electricity on a satisfactory commercial basis. That then made a significant attraction to me looking at Capricorn Power, because it has the ability to actually commercialise and on a viable basis to use small quantities of waste heat and generate electricity. So I was very impressed with the fact that, one, it can operate on a small scale basis, and secondly, it can scale up relatively quickly. So the key is now obviously getting the engine to the stage where it's reliable. Sorry, Siri's talking to me now. Is reliable and basically operate on a commercial basis. And I'm hoping that this will occur by the end of this year. Also, I've got to say, I was very attracted to the personnel at Capricorn Power. I've known Jeff Andrews over a number of years, working in the field of energy efficiency, and Mike Hodgkinson. I had the pleasure of working with him a number of years ago. So, and I've since sat as an observer on the board and very impressed with the team that has been built. So it's a combination of interest in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and renewable energy, the team that has been built up by Capricorn Power, and certainly I believe this is a genuine disruptive technology because of the ability to focus on any waste energy source at high temperature and operate on a small scale on a commercial basis.
Great, thanks for that answer. And the next one is for Mike Hodgkinson. Mike, Australia derives around 4% of its total energy consumption from biomass sources. This figure starkly contrasts the EU's usage at 10%. Do you think Australia is willing to move toward generating more electricity from biomass? And what are your most likely targets?
Thanks, Jania. Yes, so the short answer is Australia will move towards more bioenergy in its energy mix because it stacks up commercially. For example, ARENA issued a report last year on industrial process heat. As Michael mentioned, current gas prices are causing a lot of pain, but pretty typical experience to hear about tripling in energy costs. And ARENA says that this is a 93 petajoule size market. That's about 25 terawatt hours, which is a jaw-droppingly large number. That's heat only as well, remember, so that's in addition to the electricity market that I mentioned before. So we know companies with biomass waste and councils, for example, with swimming pools, who are extremely interested in compact on-site bioenergy solutions to give them heat and power, because they're paying us to do feasibility studies to solve these energy and waste problems. And there's nothing that tells you that more than someone paying to help you solve their problem. So some of them, for example, even have these gas-based combined heat and power systems that they've turned off because the gas is just too expensive. So our goal and the purpose, obviously, of our current raise is to move from feasibility into implementing these projects from next year.
Yeah, and then the next question is back to Rob, actually. Rob, you were recently the chair, as you mentioned, of the Utilities Trust of Australia, which is an infrastructure fund for institutional investors with a long-term investment horizon. How do you think about stranded assets when making investment decisions?
Well, first point to that, back when I joined the board in 2011, basically stranded assets weren't being thought of to a great deal. But as time goes on and the focus increasingly on reducing dangerous greenhouse gas emissions, then giving thought to stranded assets was a major consideration. So the first thing was to check to what extent were our assets potentially exposed to that. And a couple came to mind. One was Transgrid and the other Electronet. Both are transmitters of electricity in those states. Electronet operates in South Australia and Transgrid operates in New South Wales. So making sure that they were relevant to a renewable energy economy, both companies were working how to facilitate large-scale wind power to join on the transmission line. So in point of fact, South Australia now has a record of occasionally being actually generating more than 100% electricity from wind power. That doesn't happen very often, but it happens occasionally. And now it's a significant supplier of renewable power. The next stage, thinking about, now I'm no longer there, of course, Electronet will be thinking about storage capabilities. And as most people would be aware, the Tesla Powerwall of 100 megawatts was introduced in South Australia to store power. So that's where I see the future direction going. And on a smaller scale, that's the way in which Capricorn Power could operate in the future. The big advantage of Capricorn Power is they can generate 24-hour electricity. So effectively, it's like storage in any case. But I see the combination of storage and renewable energy being the way of the future. I'd also just like to briefly mention, we're also a major investor in the Sydney desalination plant, and obviously a big user of electricity, but all the source of electricity from that plant is renewable energy. Finally, I'd like to mention Phoenix Natural Gas, which we had a close look at. And Phoenix Natural Gas, a very innovative company. Gas was actually being used to heat places in Belfast in particular, and replacing diesel heat systems, which had a much higher CO2 impact. But now with the realisation that natural gas is increasing in price is a concern because it's a fossil fuel, they're now looking at increasing the amount of methane from organic waste to be used as a source of gas in the future. So they are moving, being well aware of the carbon constrained environment that they're operating in. So just some examples in which we were looked at in terms of actually ensuring that assets weren't stranded in the future.
Thanks, Rob. And actually, this is our last question. It's for Michael. With COVID and the changing landscape of the manufacturing industry, where are the jobs of the future? Specifically, what industries and what new roles? What investment opportunities do you think we should be looking out for in the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's why it's such a great privilege to get out and walk the factory floors and meet our manufacturing firms all across the country. Because now the government has a role to play with things like the Recycling Modernisation Fund. That's some $190 million, which will be matched by others, which will probably turn out to be $1 billion initiative to give a boost to the circular economy and more. And then think about the Australian Space Agency, and now we have the NASA Moon to Mars mission. So we have our manufacturing members wanting to be part of that as well. And so we're connecting manufacturing firms right across Australia to play a part in all those various aspects of Australian manufacturing, which is real and which is happening today. But think about if we could unlock this energy issue, the prices, if we could do something about the prices and the reliability. I know from the companies that I talk to on a daily basis, if we could take the handbrake off Australian business, we would create those jobs for tomorrow. We'd be doing that today. And so this is where AMGC plays a key role. My colleagues and I talking with our members right across the nation about what's it going to take to help create those jobs. And we're seeing that happening with Industry 4.0, this digital transformation of manufacturing around robotics and automation. But again, energy is going to play this key role in our economic recovery. And so we've been backing projects and co-funding Australian manufacturing projects, which anyone can see on our website. Have a look at the case studies, get on the Manufacturing Academy and see what's happening out there right now. And one of those projects, of course, was Capricorn Power. And so we're really pleased to be part of this project and seeing it come to fruition. And I personally look forward to the future with what's happening here.
Thanks for that, Michael. So I think we might as well take a few questions from the group. Mike, I think we have a few questions. Sorry, everyone, I'm just catching up on the Q&A and the chats. I think we have a question for, maybe Michael could answer this. What percentage of manufacturers are using solar power? I think that's to the group.
I'm not sure if I could put a number on how many manufacturers are using solar power, but it's certainly growing. Again, because these manufacturing firms and others are looking for any opportunity to get their energy under control and to be able to manage it. So anything that we can do to assist that will have a positive impact to get us out of this crisis. And gee, we need everything we can do to get us out of this crisis now, don't we? And so I know that energy in all its forms will play a key role in driving our future for Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have another question, and this is for Mike Hodgkinson. What is the physical size of each power unit? What type of smaller business would be drawn to this power solution?
Yeah, well, the footprint is about a 20-foot container, roughly about 6 meters long for the heat engine, a bit wider, and for a small-scale bioenergy, pyrolysis machine, a similar footprint again, plus a bit of space depending on the requirements of the particular project. So it is quite a compact solution. Just segueing into, I guess, one of the other questions there was about hospitals. There are examples, at the moment, for example, Beaumont Hospital in Victoria, where there's a bioenergy bioenergy producing heat for the hospital. So hospitals do use a lot of heat, obviously use electricity as well. So hospitals are a good example of a customer that has the footprint that we can provide heat and power. Or I'll also mention that a lot of hospitals have diesel or gas engines at the moment for heat and power, and we can use the exhaust heat to supplement the give them an electrical boost, if you like.
Yeah. So this question's to Rob and Mike. You said that you have a long history in the waste to energy space. What have been the hurdles that have prevented that industry moving forward? What are the steps Capricorn is taking to overcome those hurdles and help move the industry forward?
Michael, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, in the small scale waste to energy space, you know, the projects I mentioned are typically heat only, and it's, you know, more difficult to find a heat only customer than it is a heat and electricity customer, as strange as that sounds. But it is because of the synergy, the extra economics, if you like, that are provided to a customer with that combined solution. So, you know, there hasn't been a heat and electricity solution to customers because the alternatives are too expensive. The heat engines are not efficient enough at small scale, and that means expensive electricity. So those solutions aren't provided.
And as far as waste to energy plants are concerned, my first experience actually goes back to 1985 when I was Treasurer and I was approached by the Minister for Energy to provide a subsidy to EDL at the time, it's now called Brightstar, and they sent up electricity generation to the city of Berwick, and that was the first plant to convert waste methane to electricity generation. My second experience was when I left Parliament, and that was at Visy Recycling. They were trying to actually use the overs, if you like, from the recycling process to generate electricity. They ended up importing Canadian technology, which was fairly large scale, number one, and two, it actually was only suited to a pure waste source, and consequently that failed. So in other cases, when superannuation funds have looked at waste to energy plants, one of the major issues was to ensure long-term contracts of waste so they in itself didn't become a stranded asset. And that's one of the important issues that already Capricorn Power is focusing on, make sure they've got the waste source. Secondly, finally, just to mention small landfill sites. While methane's still being produced by those sites, they're just being flared, and there's a heat power that's just going up in the air and not generating electricity. And that is really a very good opportunity for Capricorn Power in the future as well.
Great. So the next question that I have is the AMGC making direct representations to the Federal Manufacturing Task Force? If so, can you share what some of those recommendations might be?
Yeah, we've certainly been part of the COVID recovery task force that's going on there, and we've been sharing our research with key people in government. So we look forward to all that's coming towards us. Of course, I can't share all those conversations, but AMGC research is certainly the backbone of our organisation, which we've been out on the field talking to manufacturing companies big and small, and so we've been able to share exactly what's happening today on the ground and what's going to be needed to get us out of this current situation. And so I certainly look forward to all that can be achieved, and I think it's going to be a very good time for Australian manufacturing, because as Australians, we're respected all around the world, and Australian-made products have this fantastic opportunity to take on the world, made in Australia like never before. So looking forward to all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this one's for Mike. What are the operational milestones over the next 6 to 12 months to get the heat engine to commercialization?
Yeah, well, we're building the heat engine now, so we will be demonstrating that as soon as possible, expected in December. We just need to work our way through some COVID-19 supply chain issues before we send the invitations out. So that's obviously the key milestone. The other key milestone is we expect the feasibility studies to be completed and to show good business case, and hopefully achieve financial close and start work on that as well. So those are the two key milestones for us in the next 6 months.
Great. And this question might be for everyone, actually. What role does local energy generation play in our energy and manufacturing future?
Well, it's great hearing Rob talking before about, you know, the methane and the heat out of our garbage tips. And every regional council, every council has waste collection, and think about the energy that we could produce at these sites could power local manufacturing at the garbage tip. Now that fits that fits right into the circular economy. So we have manufacturing firms and some of our world-leading researchers working in the circular economy sector to build things like micro factories using waste as a resource. And so perhaps we could be recycling plastics and using 3D printing technology at the source, at the garbage tips, with the energy generated at the source to create these local manufacturing jobs right at that garbage tip. I think that's a wonderful opportunity which we could all unlock with this new technology being available to us right here in Australia.
Yeah.
Just to reinforce what Michael said there, that is the golden opportunity for Capricorn Power, is a lot of that organic waste that's currently not being tapped to produce renewable electricity. And it's important to emphasise that waste-to-energy plants are defined as renewable electricity. They do constrain greenhouse gas emissions and a very important part of our future. Also, just beyond landfill sites themselves, there are many municipalities right throughout Australia who have a lot of timber waste from plants dying, trees dying, etc. They are also opportunities for Capricorn Power. In fact, Mike may want to comment on that. The City of Geelong has opportunities there, and Mike can explain what is going on in respect to that form of waste.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So, you know, most councils have green waste collection, and many, but not all of those collections then need to be processed. There was a question about contamination of waste. So, you know, that of course is one of the big problems with bioenergy. The waste does need to be uncontaminated. So City of Greater Geelong, for example, does have a processing facility at Anarchy. Costs them $3 million to set that up. They process that. Most of that output goes to mulching companies, but they still end up with what are called overs. And those overs go to landfill at the moment. And there's a lot of overs, many thousands of tonnes per annum produced. So, you know, it's just a great opportunity to be able to divert that from landfill, lock it into biochar, and you know, use it to enhance agriculture. I will just cheekily answer the question, if you don't mind, about what happens when we outgrow the Ostend factory by saying hopefully we'll move into the old Ford factory.
We all look forward to that.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for maybe one or two more. So from an Ian, he sat in on a climate council renewable jobs plan yesterday for local government, and its focus was totally on wind and solar, but not biomass to energy. What do we need to do to get biomass into this advocacy?
You want me to start on that one? Well, I think Capricorn Power is the ideal platform in order to achieve that, because there hasn't been really a successful adventure in waste to energy in Australia following EDL, Brightstar. They are the biggest waste to energy generators in Australia, but they are limited to basically fairly large scale sites. And so I think Capricorn Power does offer the opportunity to promote waste to energy, because it avoids a lot of the issues of large scale energy. For example, as the last question was about localisation, that means you don't have to transport the waste across various suburbs in order to generate electricity. The fact that Capricorn Power has the potential to operate at very small scale is also another great advantage. So I think it's really a matter for Capricorn Power to get the message out there in the community and be a significant disrupting technology.
Yeah, and I think we might do one more question. We have one for Mike. If you were the Federal Minister for Industry, Science and Technology, what is one of the first things you would do to encourage early stage innovation, especially in the green energy sector? I thought that was kind of a fun question.
Yeah, well, look. I firstly have, we always love to critique governments, but I guess the first thing I would say is I would keep the 43.5% R&D grant. That's just an absolute major source of support for early stage companies. I also have to congratulate the government on the recent crowdsourced funding legislation. That's a major boost for early stage companies again, because most people tend to think that venture capital companies provide early stage funding, but they don't. So there is a gap in the market between so-called family and friend investment and VC investment that crowdsourced funding, is really great at sort of meeting. So keep those two things happening is the key thing. And I'd have to say, please put some more money in for ARENA. I think ARENA performs, the type of role that we do need to give early stage companies a boost with the type of grant funding that they provide.
So I think just to keep this short and sweet, we could do this for a lot longer, I think. Thanks again for joining us today, everyone, and for supporting us on this journey. If you liked what you heard today, you can still express your interest to invest with us on the virtual platform until Monday. And then if you do that, you'll be one of the first to know when our investment round is open. Also, please share our link with your networks. Each of you has a unique referral link. If you go to our virtual landing page and click on the invite button, you can actually share that with those you think who would be interested in what we're doing. Once again, thank you. I think I can speak for our whole team and say that we're very, very excited about Capricorn's future, and we really hope you are too. And as always, consider the CSF risk warning and offer document before investing. Thanks, everyone, and have a great night. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Great to be with you.
Thanks.
Bye.